Hi again. We're continuing our discussion of the Council of Jerusalem from John Stott's The Spirit, the Church, and the World, the Message of Acts. He has just discussed James's proposal and reaction to the conversation that had come before James's expressions, and now he continues the discussion this way. A degree of uncertainty, however, surrounds what is sometimes referred to, at least in Anglican circles, as the Jerusalem Quadrilateral, that is, the 4 requested abstentions. At first sight, they appear to be an odd mixture of moral and ceremonial matters, since sexual immorality belongs to the former category, and idol meats things strangled, and blood to the latter. How could James combine them as if they were of equal importance? Besides, sexual chastity is an elementary ingredient in Christian holiness, so why state the obvious by including it in the list? In addition, verse 20 raises complex textual questions, as variant Greek readings reflect variant interpretations. 2 main solutions have been proposed, both aimed at separating the ethical from the ritual. The first is to regard the requested abstentions as being all moral, since the third, the meat of strangled animals, cannot by any feat of imagination or ingenuity be turned into an ethical matter. It is proposed to follow the Western text and omit it. We are then left with 3. Food polluted by idols, or food sacrificed to idols, is understood as idolatry. Blood is interpreted as bloodshedding, that is murder, and sexual immorality retains its moral meaning. These 3, idolatry, murder, and immorality, were in Jewish eyes the main moral offenses which human beings can commit. It seems a neat solution, but it raises more problems than it solves. 1. The textual warrant for dropping the meat of strangled animals is very weak. 2. The interpretation of the unqualified word blood as meaning murder is far-fetched. 3. The 3 sins are so grave that a special apostolic decree was not necessary to outlaw them. And 4. The choice of only 3 moral prohibitions raises the question whether Gentile converts were permitted to break the rest of the 10 Commandments, i.e. to steal, bear false witness, and covet. It may be this lacuna which led a scribe to add the golden rule in negative form, preserved in the Western text, and not to do to others what one would not have done to oneself. The alternative solution is the opposite, namely to regard the 4 abstentions as being all ceremonial, all matters of external purity. In this case, the first is not actual idolatry, but the eating of idol meats, to which Paul was later to refer in Romans 14 and 1 Corinthians 8. Blood refers not to shedding it, but to eating it, which was forbidden in Leviticus, while the meat of strangled animals related to animals killed without having the blood drained from them, whose flesh the Jews were forbidden to eat. In place of these 2, the Gentile believers would be expected to eat kosher food, prepared according to Jewish dietary rules. This leaves the 4th item, sexual immorality. It now seems to be the moral exception to a list of ceremonial requirements, just as things strangled was the ceremonial exception to a list of moral requirements. One way of dealing with the problem is to omit the word, and there seems to have been at least one manuscript in existence which did this, and which was known to Origen in the 3rd century. But the evidence for this is extremely flimsy. The better way is to interpret porneia, which covers in any case every kind of unlawful sexual intercourse, as referring here to all the irregular marriages listed in Leviticus 18, in particular to marriage within degrees of blood relationship or affinity forbidden by the legislation of Leviticus 18. A number of other commentators agree with this interpretation. If this reconstruction is correct, then all 4 requested abstentions related to ceremonial laws laid down in Leviticus 17 and 18, and 3 of them concerned dietary matters which could inhibit Jewish-Gentile common meals. To abstain would be a courteous and temporary, although in some circumstances necessary, concession to Jewish consciences. Once circumcision had been declared unnecessary, and so the truth of the gospel had been secured and the principle of equality established. The abstinence here recommended must be understood not as an essential Christian duty, but as a concession to the consciences of others, that is, of the Jewish converts, who still regarded such food as unlawful and abominable in the sight of God. That last part was from Joseph Addison Alexander, 19th century commentator on Acts. So obviously Stott favors the idea that this was a concession to conscience, Jewish conscience, and it was temporary. Agreeing there with Fenton Hort himself, who analyzed this same chapter. We'll link to Hort's commentary on the meaning of these abstentions, whether they were permanent or temporary.